Well, this was a video I didn't think I was going to be doing, but since I don't have really anything else to talk about, and because I've been spending the past couple of days, thinking about the recent set photos that have been coming out for this film, I decided to give you guys my thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I know I'm not a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that stuff, um, but recently I've been maybe considering that I've been maybe too hard on it. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm asking for too much. I don't know. And so I kind of decided to maybe be less harsh on it and give it another chance. I'm still not going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy before you ask me, so no, I'm not giving that movie a second chance, but just because I really don't like one of their movies that's coming up, I don't think it's fair for me to write off all the other ones like Ant-Man and all the possible Thor or Captain America sequels just because of my distaste for a couple of the films they've made. And I'm quite excited for Captain America, The Winter Soldier. I think from the stuff I've been hearing, I think it could be the most well-balanced Marvel film yet, and it really seems like that's the movie where they finally get their kind of shit together and actually produce a well-made Phase 2 movie. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking that out once it comes to my theater later this week. But anyways, Age of Ultron. Now, this film, when it comes out in about a year, this is going to be the biggest movie ever until Avengers 3 comes out. I genuinely think that this is the first film that has the potential to outgross Avatar. And Avatar made almost $3 billion at the box office. And I really think that this film has the chance to not only break all the box office records set by every other movie thus far, but to become the highest grossing film of all time. And if the film turns out to be pretty good, I think it's going to be a well-deserved sum of money. But also just talking about just to give you guys my thoughts on some of the things that I've heard about this film, it seems that Joss Whedon wants to give every Avenger, or at least most of them, a big important role, and it seems to me that a lot of things that have been set up previously are going to be paid off in this one. Now, this is a good thing, and it's a bad thing. One of my main problems with Avengers 1 was that none of the characters felt important to the overall story. I felt like if they took Hulk and Bruce Banner out of the film, like what would change? They wouldn't be able to find Loki before he opened the portal. Whoop-de-doo. They would just go to the portal anyway when Loki opened it in the sky, and the final battle would proceed pretty much the same as it already did, except Hulk wouldn't be there. What if you took Iron Man out of the plot? What would change? Well, pretty much nothing. What if you took Captain America out of the plot? Not much would change. And that's one of my big problems with the first film is that no one felt important. No one felt like they needed to really be there in order for this storyline to come together. I think that any number of them just could have been taken out of the plot and everything would have proceeded the same way as it did before, And that's weird because a lot of people, they praise Avengers 1 for being this, great character thing. And it sure does have great character moments and banter here and there. But no one feels important to the overall storyline, and that's a big problem for me when you're trying to make a joint film like this. And I know that the plot is the most generic comic book plot of all time, which is another problem I had with it. But still, if you're gonna make a bare bones kind of plot, at least make the characters feel important, and that's what I think Joss Whedon wants to correct with Age of Ultron. And I think that's actually a pretty positive thing because, like I said, I didn't. Most of the people in the last film didn't really feel important to the plot at all, and you could have just taken most of them out of the picture, and everything would have proceeded the same as it did before. But at the same time, when you're trying to give everybody a big role, you get into lots and lots of problems, and this is why Age of Ultron makes me more nervous than Days of Future Past. In Days of Future Past, I don't hear Bryan Singer saying, oh yeah, this X-Man is going to have a big role, and this guy's going to have a big role, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and sure, there's like 20 X-Men in it, maybe even more, but I don't hear Bryan Singer saying, this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and her, and him, and all these guys are going to have a huge role in the plot. No, it seems like, he's pretty much doing X-Men kind of the way a lot of people have been doing them, He focuses on a few characters that are really, important to the themes and the plot, and the other ones there are kind of more for supporting roles, and whether or not they get shafted, that's a matter of your own personal taste or your own opinion or something. Personally, it doesn't really bother me with the X-Men because I think that you really can't do all of the X-Men justice. I think there's just way too many mutants, there's way too many X-Men for even a 10-film franchise to give them all the spotlight in. They would have to get solo movies so that they could get the spotlight fanboys all want them to have. And I think that's the reason why it doesn't bother me when some X-Men in the X-Men movies have lesser roles than a few other ones, because I just don't think you can do them all justice. And, the clear answer would be, well, then make less X-Men. Put less X-Men in. Don't put 20, put 6, 7, or something. But even that is a challenge, because as Joss Whedon proved, even if you do have a small team of superheroes, it's still really difficult to make them all feel relevant. I mean, sure, you can give them cool moments here and there, but if they don't feel relevant to what is happening around them, then they're basically just glorified spectators who can interact with what's going on. And I think that's, like I said, that was a problem I with the Avengers. And generally speaking, most of the X-Men characters, they're not big players. Most of the X-Men are maybe C, D, maybe B-listers at best. And, you have like 10 of them that are like A-listers that you would put in like the upper echelon of Marvel heroes. But for the most part, these guys can't even hold their own comic books. And that's the difference between the X-Men and the Avengers. The X-Men is an all-star cast of characters, most of which these days, at least the core team, all of these guys have an ongoing series. Hawkeye has one, Black Widow has one, Thor has one, Iron Man has one, Captain America has one. When I think about the Avengers, I think about guys who can hold on their own. Like, these guys can hold their own comic book, their own TV series, their own movies and such. And so when they get shafted, it's a bigger problem for me, because these guys are, more important, I guess. And the X-Men, they don't have that. I don't really think any of the X-Men, except begrudgingly, I gotta admit this, except maybe Wolverine or Magneto, could really hold their own animated series, And sure, Marvel now is kind of experimenting on this and, kind of making me eat my own words with releasing Chris Claremont's Nightcrawler and Greg Rucka's Cyclops series. But like I said, I just don't buy the X-Men holding his own movie or anything like that, or even his own comic book. So if they can't hold their own comic books, then that just proves that these guys, they aren't as important. And that's why it makes me more nervous for Age of Ultron than X-Men Days of Future Past. Because when you try to give everyone a big role, you're basically kind of backing yourself up against a corner, because you got to resolve this, and then that thing, and then you got to deal with all this other stuff. Apparently the film is going to give Hawkeye a bigger role. We don't know what. From the set photos, it seems like he's going to be having a more that his relationship with Scarlet Witch, which was hinted in the comic books, is going to be a big part of the film, which should be interesting. Black Widow's past is apparently going to come back to bite her in the ass. Captain America's struggle, to adapt to the modern society is still going to continue. And then they got to introduce the Vision. They got to explain who the hell Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are. What are their new origins and shit. They got to explain where Ultron comes from. They got to explain... They gotta set so much stuff off, and they have to pay it off in this film. Because Avengers 3, it's gonna be Thanos. So unless they continue Ultron in an Iron Man 4, and Iron Man 4 is not gonna happen, I'm just gonna tell you that right off the bat. Kevin Feige says that Iron Man 3 was technically Iron Man 4 because he counted Avengers 1 as Iron Man 3 as well. So, and he said, and we know for a fact that Robert Downey Jr. has signed on for only Avengers 2 and Avengers 3. He has not signed on for any more Iron Man films, and the vast majority of the people who have acted in the Iron Man films, they have stated that, we're getting too old for this shit. We're kind of sick of doing this thing. So Iron Man, the solo film franchise, is on the back burner until at least Phase 4, I think. And I think after Phase 4, they're going to introduce new actors, because a lot of the contracts are going to be ending at that point. Thor, Chris Evans, Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., a lot of the older actors, their contracts are going to be up. So I think Phase 4 is going to be like a soft reboot where all the old continuity is still there, but new actors are going to be brought in to continue the cinematic universe. Where was I going with this? But yeah, I can't believe I just went on the tangent over there, but oh god, I can't believe I lost my train. Alright, so yeah, I was talking about all the things that the film is apparently going to be dealing with, and I think that when you're when you're putting these bigger heroes and you're trying to cram in all that kind of stuff that has to be paid off in the span of 2.5 hour film, I think it's going to be a challenge. And considering the fact that Whedon had difficulty making the characters feel relevant to the plot last time when he had a significantly smaller cast of people to work with and a significantly less complicated plot to work with, I am skeptical he's going to be able to pull off this more complicated thing with like 12 Avengers on the team. I mean, you got the core 7 from the original film, you got Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch joining in, you got Iron Patriot joining, and then the Vision is going to join in too. So that is like at least 10 Avengers, not counting people like Maria Hill, Nick Fury, Ultron, Baron Von Strucker. All these guys, they got to be set up, they got to be paid off in the span of like a 2, maybe 2.5 hour film. So that's what makes me nervous about the film, you know, thematically and story-wise. As for the set photos, I'm kind of mixed on them. Now, I really like the Captain America costume that was shown yesterday. I think it looks really cool. It's kind of a mix between his Commander Steve Rogers, his second costume, you know, from Winter Soldier, and maybe a bit of the Ultimate Suit thrown in there. I think it actually looks better than the one in the comic books, and I think it's probably his best on-screen costume thus far, so I'm pretty positive on that front. I really like how Scarlet Witch looks. I don't think she's going to get the red coat from Uncanny Avengers because a lot of people are already confused between, you know, two Quicksilvers on... One is on Days of Future Past, and one is obviously going to be in Age of Ultron. And a lot of the mainstream people who really don't read comic books, who aren't involved in all this bullshit, they don't get what the hell is going on. And I think giving her the red coat is going to make her look like the Phoenix from X3 The Last Stand. And we don't need any more X-Men comparisons with this movie. But anyway, I like how she looks. I think it's a decent design. It's not great, but it's a hell of a lot better than her comic book costume. But then there's her brother. Oh my fucking god. This guy looks atrociously bad. He looks even worse than the Days of Future Past design. And before you all crucify me for shitting on the second coming of Christ, aka Joss Whedon, let me just point this out to you. Days of Future Past, Quicksilver is in the 70s. And in the 70s, everyone looked like a fucking idiot. Everyone dressed terribly, and everyone looked just like a complete moron. And so, when I see a guy in the 70s dressed badly, it really doesn't matter to me because it's the fucking 70s. Now, if this was the 21st century, well, if this was like anything near our time, then yeah, I would have a big problem with it because no halfway sane individual would dress like that. But since it's the 70s, and everyone looked like a fucking idiot in the 70s, I don't really have a problem with the design. I think it's actually pretty fitting given the time period and the way people used to dress back then. The modern age Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, he is the spitting image of his comic book counterpart, and that is my fucking problem with it. I hate comic book accurate appearances because, in my opinion, I don't think that just because something is in a comic book, it can work on TV or in live action. Live action and film have different standards, and to accommodate said standards, you have to make the necessary adjustments. And the poster boy for why comic book accurate shit, or at least comic book accurate costumes, should not be done in live action is Captain America in the first Avengers film. His costume looked terrible. I saw cosplay suits that were leaps and bounds better than the official costume made by people, professional people, paid God knows how much money to design the suit. It was terrible. Terrible, 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 terrible. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. A lot of other people unanimously agree that Captain America's costume in the Avengers was utter shit, and Whedon should have just given him a different... he should have just done what the guys at Winter Soldier did. They just gave him an updated version of his first Avenger suit, and it looked great in First Avenger. You didn't need to change it. Why do you break something? Why fix that's not broken? If it ain't broke, don't fucking break it. And so he looks like a complete jackass. This is another case, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, where the concept art they released for him looks infinitely better than his finished appearance. And if you saw the Guardians of the Galaxy concept art, that concept art was the shit. It looked fantastic, and the people in the movie don't even look half as good as that. They look pretty mediocre, to be honest with you. And this is another case of that, and I kind of wish that Scarlet Witch had blonde hair, because I think Elizabeth Olsen just looks naturally better with blonde hair. I know comic book fanboys would just be throwing a fucking hissy fit because these are not like the classics or some stupid bullshit like that. But personally, I don't care, as long as a character aesthetically looks pleasing to me. I don't care if they don't necessarily look like the comic book counterpart. So yeah, I wish she was blonde. I just think it looks better on her. I think the black hair just makes her look kind of generic, I guess, and it kind of makes her look like she doesn't have a neck, which is something Grace Randolph pointed out, and I kind of agree on. She just kind of looks like she doesn't even have a neck, which is, it's a weird thing to say, but it just, that's how she looks to me anyway. Her brother's, whole t-shirt thing looks terrible. His hair is just, it looks so incredibly fake. I just don't like it. I know they're going to fix it up for the final film, but judging from the set photos I have right now, I just don't like how Quicksilver looks. I think he looks absolutely atrocious, and he's going to have to work very, very, very hard for me not to cringe in every scene he's in, like I did for Captain America in the Avengers 1. The last character who we've seen so far is Hawkeye. Now, Hawkeye's costume seems to be the same exact one he had in Avengers 1, except he has kind of a coat, and the coat is a little bit reminiscent of his comic book design. I think the coat is okay. It's not great or anything. But can I just kind of call out the hypocrisy here, because when Huntress was revealed on Arrow, everyone threw a fucking hissy fit just because she had a leather jacket. She didn't have the big pointy ears mask. She didn't have the stupid Jim Lee design where you can see her thighs and her belly is open for some stupid reason. And it's basically the same. It's basically comic book fans, crying foul and screaming bloody murder that it's not like the comic books. But then when this guy, another archer who doesn't have a pointy mask and who's just getting a leather jacket over on, everyone is praising the fucking design. Can I just call the bullshit out on that? That is so hypocritical. Like, how can you say Huntress has been destroyed, bastardized, raped, and ruined because, oh my god, she has a leather jacket instead of her comic book accurate costume, but when Joss Whedon does that for Hawkeye, you motherfuckers suck his balls. Does anyone sense the hypocrisy in that logic? Anybody? Anybody? No? Well, fuck you too. And then last but not least, there is Ultron. Now, I don't know if this is Ultron. I think it is, because there are other people wearing those mocap suits where I assume they're going to be playing the drones. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that that is Ultron, at least maybe an early version of him, or maybe like an advanced drone. Maybe like his drones have ranks. There's the foot soldiers, and then there's the slightly stronger guys, and then there's Ultron at the top. I don't know, that seems kind of like overcomplicating it. It's not a video game, and I doubt the general audience would really give a shit if they had ranks. Like, I think it would just be simpler to give them, to just have Ultron, here his foot soldiers, bland, that's it. It's not a video game. You don't have to make ranks for it, for variety's sake or whatever. As for the design, it's okay, I guess. I really liked the cover of What If Age of Ultron that should be coming up pretty soon on the video itself. It looks like the Iron Man armor, but it's still very noticeably Ultron-like, and I think that could really work on the big screen. I think generally it's been accepted that Iron Man is going to be involved with the creation of Ultron. I think it's just a fact. The fact that Paul Bettany, who did Jarvis, is now going to be acting Vision. I think that's another big sign that, yes, Tony Stark is going to be making Ultron. And no, I don't give a shit, because Ant-Man is not set up in this continuity yet. He's not set up in this continuity yet, and I just think it would be kind of stupid for them to have a character we haven't seen or heard from in the cinematic universe be responsible for the creation of a villain, because then his whole daddy issues thing would just be like, what the fuck, you know, we haven't even met this guy, we don't even know if anything Ultron says against him is true. But when you do that with Tony Stark, you know, if he calls Tony out on him being a drunk, you know, kind of an abusive idiot, then yeah, we've had 4 movies to see that, and we could legitimately buy Ultron's complaints of Tony. So that's why I think that it's pretty much confirmed he's going to be the creator of Ultron, and I don't care. Like I said, I don't care. I think the design is okay, but I would have preferred something like the What If Age of Ultron variant cover, where it's like it's the briefcase suit from Iron Man 2 with an Ultron twist given to it, and I think it looks something very easily doable in the film itself. Another possibility is that is the costume, that's the suit he's going to be having in the beginning of the film, and then symbolically he's going to get rid of it and create himself an entirely new suit, so he can, you know, symbolically, like, relinquish any hold his father has over him, and so he can truly become Ultron. It is also possible that the things we're seeing being filmed right now in South Korea are not really... It's not the beginning of the movie. In fact, Grace Randall pointed out something that I think this is the situation, is that directors these days, when they're making a big action blockbuster, they actually film the big epic action scenes first, so they can get, you know, big epic action scene trailer out, so, you know, to get people pumped on it, and then later on, once the quieter scenes are filmed, they can release, you know, maybe a quieter, less bombastic trailer. And a lot of directors are actually doing this, and I think that this could be the case. I actually wouldn't be surprised if this was the final battle or a big battle in the middle of the film. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on Age of Ultron. I know this video was a lot longer than I intended it to be, but those are my 2 cents on the film. I'm mildly excited for it. I think that if he can pull this off, it could be a film better than X2, although X2 is like the ultimate team comic book movie as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, Joss Whedon has his work cut out for him. He has a bigger cast than before. He has multiple villains to deal with. He's trying to give every character except Thor, apparently, you know, a big backstory that's going to feed into all this. And if he can pull it off, I think we're going to be in for a very, very good film. If Avengers wins it, we're going to be getting an average movie, nothing special. But at least a nice enough popcorn flick to waste 2.5 hours of your life on. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later. Bye.